Greetings, boys, girls, and gender rebels. I'm Penny Underbust, and today you are joining me for a Penny for Your Thoughts video. And today's topic of conversation is going to be wardrobe choices. Odd choice of topic, I know. The reason that I have chosen this one for today, though, is because I have noticed that there is a lot of psychology behind the choices that I make for my wardrobe. And admittedly, for me, I do have a very unique body to find clothing for. It is admittedly very difficult. So maybe other people have a much more uncomplicated relationship with clothing than I do, but I have a very complicated relationship with clothing, and I think that that makes it an interesting topic for me to consider. And I think that if it's an interesting topic for me, then it's bound to be for other people as well. That is the logic I am using for making this video. It's not the most sound logic in the world, but gosh darn it, it's the logic I'm sticking to, so deal with it. So my plan for this video is for me to go into as much detail as I can on the various reasons that I wear the sort of clothing that I do. I'm going to start with the really obvious ones, and then as I go, I'm going to get into more like obscure or theoretical reasons. Now, nothing that I'm going to mention in this video is based on nothing. It's all going to be based on my personal experiences and observations. But towards the end, I'll say that it's getting into the more theory territory as I go there. So, yeah. The reason that I'm going to be doing it in this fashion, though, is simply because I don't want to assume that I know anything about other people's choices. Because I think that my body is rather unique, and therefore my experiences might be very limited. But the reason that I think this could be interesting for you as well, it might just be interesting to hear about how someone who has a unique body deals with the world. But on top of that, I think that pretty much everyone else has bizarre patterns behind the clothing choices that they make as well. Even if it's more simple or just based on purely on comfort, I think that given how much society pressures us into looking certain ways, there's bound to be more depth to it than that. And I think that thinking about these things within ourselves is important because it helps us know that we are making these decisions consciously rather than unconsciously, and conscious decisions are better than unconscious decisions. Okay, so the very obvious reasons behind wardrobe choice. The first, and in my opinion, the most obvious one, is for comfort, right? I wear a lot of tank tops and mini shorts because I find them incredibly comfortable. They don't restrict my range of motion at all, which is very important because I'm a person who likes to flail. And also, I have tended to live in very hot areas in my life. I was born and raised in Australia. After that, I moved to Okinawa, and now I live in San Diego. I've had a consistent I also lived in Vegas for a year, which is also very hot. It seems practical to me to wear that sort of clothing based on temperatures. But when you are a female and you make the decision to wear low-cut t-shirts and shorts, there usually has to be more to it than that, based on the fact that society will judge you quite strongly for those decisions. So there is more to it than that. The second obvious reason for me is to look good, right? That's very subjective, that what looks good or doesn't look good differs greatly from person to person, but I'm a person who very much likes my body. I like my body a lot. It has a lot of good shapes in it, as far as I am concerned. It's very strong. I have a lot of muscle, and you can see that, and I think that that's very attractive. I've always really liked my legs. My legs were one of the first features of myself that I very much liked. And I have always liked wearing, that's wrong, since puberty, I have enjoyed wearing short things on my legs to show off the strength and size of them. And I remember being 14 or 15 and having people tell me that, oh, Penny, you don't have the legs to pull off that sort of thing. Like, don't you think that skirt's a little bit short? Or like, oh, you're so confident. Like, I'd never be able to show off my legs. They're too fat. And stuff like that. And I'll get into that in a minute. But the original point, I like looking good, or at least I like looking good for myself. Like, I like seeing the sort of things that I like seeing when I look at myself. So low-cut tank tops and short shorts is something that I enjoy wearing. And then finally, another obvious one for me is that it's like a big part of the reason that I wear those two things so much, and I really do. Like, people who are new to my channel won't know this, but anyone who's been following me for very long on social media will know that I pretty much just wear mini shorts and tank tops because that's what I'm comfortable in. But it's kind of because I don't really have many choices. Like, when you are larger, it's just restricted, especially if you have certain things you like doing, like showing off your body. There's only so many choices for clothing that even will fit you. And yeah, for me, it's kind of just been narrowed down to those two things. Yesterday, Cooper and I went shopping because I need some more bras to sleep in. And Old Navy used to carry tank tops and bras that I loved. They were just like little elastic, stretchy things that I would use to sleep in because they gave enough support to sleep in. But they recently changed their tank tops to being too short for me, and their sports bras to being like racerback. Like they like go up, and because of the size of my chest, that puts like... There's the gravity pulling the front down, which pulls the back up, which means that if it's a racerback, it gives me pressure migraines from there always being just an elastic band of pressure, just the back of my neck at all times. So it's just, that's it. I just don't have any options now. They're just off the table, and I have to find new places that do these things in ways that don't suck. But that's kind of always been my bane. Like, I find something that I like and I stick to it until that option is no longer an option. And to me, those are like the main obvious surface reasons for why I wear the clothing that I wear. But obviously there's more to it than that. And I mean, I guess it's obvious to me, but it might not necessarily be obvious to other people, and that's why this conversation is interesting, in my opinion, because other people may not have considered anything past that level with themselves. And I think it would be interesting if you did consider past that level with yourself and then shared it with me down in the comments section, because I am fascinated by this sort of psychology. But so now that I'm going to go into social choices from this one. And I'm going to start actually by mentioning something that my acquaintance Ladybeard once said to me. For those of you who do not know who Ladybeard is, he is an Australian wrestler who dresses up in maids' outfits to do wrestling and also to sing heavy metal and to be kawaii as fuck. One time I did a photo shoot with him. It was very, very fun. And we talked for a while. And I asked him, you know, like, why do you dress like a girl? Because he doesn't, you know, he's not someone who I would traditionally see dressed in hyper feminine clothing, because he's quite a masculine person. And I've personally always been very fascinated by people who fuck with gender stereotypes. That is a specific preference of mine. I like people who push the system, and I was curious to know his specific reasoning for why he did it. And he said to me, he said, "Penny, I've always really," this is paraphrasing, but because I can't remember the specific words, but he was like, "I've always really enjoyed dressing in girls' clothing because I am an extrovert and I love talking to people and I love getting to know people. And if I dress in girls' clothing, I don't waste my time talking to or getting to know the sort of person who would be offended by that sort of thing." It's basically his version of like a test to even know if he should bother socializing with someone, because someone who would be inherently offended by someone dressed in a maid outfit, by a man dressed in a maid outfit, they just aren't worth him wasting his time on. Which I thought was very elegant, and I think that is a little bit of the case with me as well. The sort of person who would be offended by me wearing low-cut tops and showing cleavage and stuff, like, you can't do that. I don't want to talk to that person. And for me, I'm not an extrovert. I'm very introverted. I have an incredibly limited amount of social energy at any given time. I hit my threshold very quickly. The second I get like a handful of people being just a little bit too privileged or rude, it's just sort of like, nah, I'm fucking done. I need to go home and play video games and listen to angry music. So if I waste any of my precious limited social ability on someone who would be judgy and weird, I feel terrible. So I definitely think I have a little bit of that. And And then on top of that, because I am the sort of person who has a lot of social issues, I do have quite bad social anxiety, and I just have a lot of fear surrounding large groups of humanity. I think that like a lot of the worst experiences in my life have happened when in large crowds of strangers. So I freeze up and I have panic attacks, and I'm very scared in that sort of scenario, and wearing clothing that would indicate that I'm very, very confident and capable helps the bluff a bit. Because getting by in society when you are a person with extreme nervousness and anxiety conditions, like it's very hard. It's hard doing anything. I'm just always fucking whimpering and just the worst. And I'm trying very hard to no longer do those things. And it's sort of one of those fake it till you make it sort of things, where it's like if I'm wearing this ridiculously confident, extroverted wardrobe, it kind of helps me a little bit get into that headset to being capable and a human being a capable, mature adult, which I'm not very successfully, very frequently. And now the actual final thing here. So this one is more theoretical, but this is almost without fail. And I'm not actually sure how much of this is me projecting it because I noticed this trend, and now I'm just observation bias. Is that what it's called? Observational bias. But and this is going to get just slightly unpleasant to talk about for a minute, but the sort of person who is a sexual predator tends to look for someone to victimize. So, and this might come off as victim blaming, and I just want to stress very strongly that I do not ever think it is the victim's fault that they were hurt. Please let me stress that. But I find that when I wear more covering clothing, like I have this baggy Minecraft t-shirt that I really, really like wearing. It's ridiculously comfortable. But almost without fail, anytime that I go in public wearing it, a creep corners me and makes me feel vulnerable. Like someone will just start touching me, like, hey baby, you look really cute, or like, oh damn girl, like you know me, or what, like whatever creepy fucking thing randos say to me on the street. Like anytime I'm in that shirt, it happens. And anytime I'm wearing pants that cover like more of my legs than the bare minimum, it fucking happens. And I came to the conclusion a while ago that it was probably because the sort of person who is looking for someone to victimize, someone to make feel small, someone to make them feel bigger and better about themselves, they're not looking for someone who looks confident. And so it's sort of a way, like a defense mechanism for me, because I am the sort of person who is regularly victimized. I am the sort of person who does attract people who want to hurt me and who want to make me feel bad because I have nervousness disorders. Anyone who's looking for someone who's anxious and frail will notice me being like, excuse me, I'm really sorry for... I'm sorry, is this the right place to go for, like, they'll see me doing that and they'll be like, oh, haha, that's the person who I'm gonna fuck with because I know they won't be able to stand up for themselves. Whereas as when they see someone in a low-cut top and really short shorts just standing there, and even if I'm more awkward, they automatically read, like, slut, or, like, confident, or, like, oh, look, there's that girl who's up herself or whatever, and they don't necessarily automatically think there's someone I can victimize, even though they could. And now I'm giving people fucking power, but I'm better at it now. I'm significantly more capable of dealing with the public. I really worked myself up though when I was getting into that the mindset made me relive things I don't like reliving. So sorry if I'm sounding stuttery and awkward now. It's never particularly good to talk about that sort of thing, and I apologize if I made anyone else feel uncomfortable with it. There could be other things with that though, like, but I did notice it many times. The very, very first time I noticed it, it was one of the first years that I was in Okinawa, and my husband was deployed, and I was feeling really, really, really depressed. And it was before I put on my corset, and I already had crazy hair at that point. And so I was feeling really low in confidence that day, but I really, really needed to go to the grocery store. So I didn't want to deal with kids pointing at me or anything and being like, oh my God, look at her hair, mommy, and stuff like that. So I put on a brown wig, I wore my Minecraft shirt, and I wore a pair of baggy cargo pants. And this dude cornered me in the fucking grocery section, like in the fresh food produce section, to tell me that, girl, if you dress like that, like you should, like you must know what you do, like you drive guys crazy dressing like that and stuff like that. And I was literally in the baggiest clothing you can imagine. And then the next day I wore my corset, because it was right when I was kind of getting into it. I wore my corset, I had my hair up, and I was wearing a really low cut dress over the corset, and I had a group of teenagers insulting me. Like they pointed at me, all laughed at the top of their lungs, and then sort of followed me around the BX, the base exchange, just sort of like laughing and pointing at me. And I came to the conclusion that like that's sort of my choices. And I've always kind of had those two options, because I've always been someone who stands out. Like even prior to getting fake breasts and prior to wearing corsets, I'm a big person. I'm a big person who is built big. And like, I know that people might view that as me being defensive or whatever. I don't actually care that I'm fat. I'm not offended by it. This is just me making a blatant observation. I am large. I have very wide shoulders. I have wide hips. I have a narrow waist. I'm tall. 5'10", not the tallest, but also not short either. So I've always sort of stood out, and I've always had people telling me that I stand out. So it's always been a case of, well, Penny, you are going to draw attention. So what kind of attention do you want to draw? So my wardrobe choice has largely been me dealing with that. And at the end of the day, I would much rather deal with a group of teenagers following me around, being judgmental, pointless pricks, than I would a dude cornering me and victimizing me. Like, those are the two options that I have. And it'd be nice if I didn't have either. It'd be nice if I could just wear what I wanted to and not have people be pricks. But that's not an option. It has never been an option. It has never succeeded. It has never worked any of the times that I've tried it. So yeah, do you have any weird like defense or confidence mechanisms that you have built around your wardrobe? Are you more utilitarian with your wardrobe? Do you just sort of dress in whatever happens to fit the bill? Do you find it shallow when other people put this much thought in their wardrobe? Do you find it interesting? I don't know. I think it's a topic that has a surprisingly large amount of things that the conversations that it can start. Filming this video was quite hard for me, not because I was like nervous or upset to share anything, but because every time I started talking about something, I went off on a tangent about the subject, because I just feel like it's such a broad, wide subject that has so many different ways of being interpreted depending on who you are as a person. Yeah, like, how does someone who fits basically, like, who is the model of like a size 12, like, how do you dress? Is it easy? Is it hard because you have so many options? Is it hard finding yourself? Is it difficult knowing you're the standard and then all the interesting clothing is only made for people who fit a niche? Is it, yeah, like, I don't know, like, it's a fascinating subject to me. So I would love it if you engaged me in conversation on it. So yeah, Penny for your thoughts. I'm gonna try to do that thing that I'm bad at.
Like, comment, and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video, because it helps my channel.
I actually feel like YouTube's dying now, and like having metrics here doesn't really matter that much. For me, it's never really mattered though. I like the thought that I'm engaging people in conversation and discussions about things, or even just the simple thought that I'm engaging people in them thinking to themselves. That makes me happy. So if you really want to do something to help me and my channel, it's think about the subject. Think about it with yourself. You don't even have to fucking vocalize it. I don't care. Just get contemplative. And then, I don't know. That's it. Just get contemplative. That helps me. That helps me and my channel. Yeah, from the bottom of my little black heart. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody. I will see you next time. Goodbye. Have you ever thought about the song Everybody Wants to Be a Cat from the Disney movie The Aristocats? Because I really like that song. It's a good song. It's like a jazz song. It's got some sick beats and stuff. Have you ever actually listened to it? Because I know the lyrics, like I sing it all the time, but I only really listened to them recently, and they're really not good. Everybody wants to be a cat, because a cat's the only cat who knows where it's at. Everybody's picking up on that feline beat, 'cause everything else is obsolete. Now a square with a horn can make you wish you weren't born every time he plays. And with a square in the act, he can set music back to the caveman days. I've heard some corny birds who tried to sing, but a cat's the only cat who knows how to swing. I just feel like it's really judgy. It's really judgy. It's like, ugh. Oh yeah, and the little bit that's like, everybody wants to be a cat, because a cat's the only cat who knows where it's at. While playing jazz, you always has a welcome mat, 'cause everybody digs a swinging cat. That bit to me indicates that and also the pacing of the movie, the scene that it's in is like, hey kids, join us for this jazz. Join us for this jazz. And so it's to indicate that jazz is inclusive, right? And that everyone's welcome to it. But then literally the lyrics of the song are, I'm a cat, aren't I great? I'm a cat, and everyone wants to also be a cat, because the cat's the only cat who knows where it's at. And everyone who isn't a cat, when they try, is just absolutely shameful and awful, and everyone hates it, and it sounds like garbage. And if you're not already a cat, just give up. Just give up, loser, because you're not already a cat. Isn't that a bad message?